I was a primary school teacher for 20 years, and I've now given away my age by letting you know that. After that, after I taught all the ages and I'd led various subjects in the school, I was thinking what might be next. And a job opened up as a regional manager in computing education. And that, I can see now, that was a kind of a stepping stone. God was taking me on a journey and preparing me for this role. And I loved doing that. I was managing communities of teachers across London and the east of England. So a lot of traveling, which is very similar to the role that I'm in now. But then COVID hit and everything changed, as it did, I'm sure, for you. And lots of people's jobs changed as well. And I was sitting in my church in Red Hill, December, 4 years ago it was, in December, thinking about what could possibly be next for me. And my job became an online role overnight. And having been a primary school teacher for so many years, I couldn't see myself sitting behind a computer screen and not engaging with people. So I was sitting there pondering about it, and an idea came into my mind, is the only way that I can describe it. And I believe God planted that seed. And I wondered whether I could be a regional manager, but for a Christian organization. And I kind of laughed to myself, thinking, am I just dreaming this up? This sounds like my ideal role. I'd love to do that. But where do you go to find this kind of thing, and does it exist? And in that moment, I said to God, if you want me to do this, can you open the door? Can you show me how, make this possible? How can this happen? And I was on my phone on LinkedIn, which is an app on the Tuesday evening where people look for jobs. And I was kind of very casually scrolling through, and I stumbled across the leprosy mission. And I thought, leprosy, wow, I haven't heard about that for quite some time. Or maybe you feel like that this morning. Maybe you heard about it as a child, but you haven't really thought about it since. And I thought, well, I can learn that. I can learn about leprosy. Maybe this is the role that God has been equipping me for. And I was back in my church the following Sunday, and I asked God to give me a really clear sign. And I prayed about it, and then I waited. Halfway through the service, we had a visiting speaker. He got up, he walked to the front, he opened God's word. What did he read? Well, he read the story where Jesus heals a man from leprosy. Wow, I nearly fell off my seat in shock. Why do we do that? Why do we pray for something, and then, when we get a clear sign, we kind of almost don't believe it? But I was so encouraged by that. And shortly afterwards, I was offered the role. And I've been doing this 3.5 years now. I've been traveling around London and the southeast of England, speaking in churches on Sundays, in midweek groups through the week, and in schools, anywhere really where people are interested in hearing more about the leprosy mission and what we do with people affected by leprosy. But I just wanted to share that this morning to encourage you. There are no restrictions placed on us by God for who he chooses to use. You just need to be willing. And we're going to come back to that, I am willing, in a few moments when we read a verse from Matthew. But this morning, no matter how old, how young, whether you're sitting there feeling like God couldn't use me, what have I got to offer? I want to encourage you that God can use every person here this morning, and those perhaps watching the recording later. God doesn't call the equipped, he equips those that he calls. So if you feel that God is kind of nudging you, encouraging you to maybe come alongside a colleague, a friend, a neighbor, somebody to invite to church, maybe he's calling you to do something life-changing, then I would encourage you to pray into that and let God show you the way and open the door for you this morning. The Leprosy Mission is a very inspiring organization. It was started 150 years ago by 2 people, and it is now the largest leprosy charity in the world. So never feel, what difference can I make in this world? Wellesley and Alice Bailey, they were a couple from Ireland, have left an incredible legacy behind. And as I say, they started this charity. But you may be wondering what leprosy is. So we're going to start with our first video of the morning. Should be able to start it. There we go. It's called Every 2 Minutes.
Hi there. I wonder if I can have 2 minutes of your busy day today for my friend Arshad. Arshad has leprosy. That's right. Today, Arshad is living with leprosy. In fact, he's one of more than 200,000 people who are newly diagnosed each year. Arshad is feeling full of shame and sad because people in his community believe he is contagious and that he is cursed. And worse, he's feeling worthless because most people in the world believe that leprosy hasn't existed since ancient times. Arshad would like you to know more about his disease. Leprosy is a mildly infectious condition caused by a bacteria related to tuberculosis. 95% of us are naturally immune to it, but it's more common in countries where poverty is rife and people's immune systems are not strong. If left untreated, leprosy causes damage to large nerves in the hands and feet, so the patient simply doesn't feel it when they hurt themselves. These wounds, and the ulcers they often cause, can ultimately lead to permanent disability, amputation, and despair. Leprosy is also one of the world's most stigmatizing diseases. Whole families see their education, job, and marriage prospects affected by discrimination and misunderstanding, often being denied their basic human rights. Even if aware that they have leprosy, patients fear being diagnosed, so fail to seek treatment, perpetuating a vicious cycle of disease, disability, and discrimination. 3 million people in the world are living with irreversible disabilities caused by late treatment of leprosy. But since 1982, an effective cure has been available. None of this has to happen. Arshad has been receiving support from the Leprosy Mission for a while now. We're a global charity working to diagnose, treat, and rehabilitate those who are suffering from this dreadful disease. After medication cured Arshad of leprosy, surgery helped him to use his hands and feet again. Now he's studying at one of our training centres so he can get a job and sustain himself. And thanks to awareness raising in his community, people now know that those affected by leprosy should not be outcasts and have the same rights as anyone else. We don't just help cure leprosy. Our hope is for more people to be educated about the disease. Since you started watching this film, somewhere in the world, someone has been diagnosed with leprosy. Show your support by sharing this video. We can't turn back the clock, but we can stop it ticking on this silently destructive disease. Thanks for watching.
That short video explains leprosy is a nerve disease. And because of that, it's a very dangerous disease. It attacks the nerves in the hands, in the feet, and also the eyes. One of the first signs of leprosy is the patches that appear on a person's body, and they can appear on any part of the skin. But if you're to touch them, they've lost feeling. Imagine for a moment how difficult it would be to not have feeling in your hands. When you have a bath or a shower, we all do the same thing before we get in. We either put our hand underneath the running water or we put our hand into the water. And that's to test the temperature, isn't it? Because nobody here likes a cold shower. I mean, you might have liked one in the heat wave we've been having, but normally you don't want to get into a freezing cold shower. And it's not nice to get into a bath that is too hot. But just imagine for a moment, if you couldn't feel, suddenly life becomes very difficult. And people burn themselves, they injure their skin, and they don't realize that they've done that. Equally, if they're walking around barefoot and they step on something sharp like broken glass or a rock, they can cut their feet and may not notice until afterwards. In the picture here where the lady is sitting in the wheelchair, you can see the damage that leprosy has caused to her hands. She's lost quite a lot of her fingers. Unfortunately, she's also had half of one of her legs amputated, and that is something we don't want to do. This level of disability was caused by late diagnosis. The films reminded us that every 2 minutes a person is diagnosed. But a worse statistic is that we estimate for every person that we find and that we offer the cure to, that 19 people are hidden away because of the terrible stigma and discrimination that still surrounds this disease. And to help you to understand that a bit more and what it's like for a person with the leprosy, I need to take you back to the 1940s. So this is about 40 years before the cure was discovered in 1982. And there was a young gentleman who was being treated in one of our hospitals, and he had an ulcer on his foot, and the infection was spreading up into the body. And the doctor, Dr. Paul Brand, he's a famous surgeon in leprosy missions. He had a difficult conversation that morning. So he sat down on the hospital bed and he put his arm around this young man. He was speaking through an interpreter and he said, "Please, can you tell this young man how sorry I am, but today I have to amputate his leg." And when he passed on the news, the man started crying uncontrollably. And the doctor felt awful, and he said to the interpreter, "Please, can you explain why I have to do this? Maybe he doesn't understand. I don't have any choice. I've been trying to help cure this, and close up this ulcer. Nothing is working, and I have to do this to save his life." And the interpreter stopped him and said, "Actually, it's you that misunderstand what's going on here. This young man, he isn't crying because you're going to amputate his leg. He is crying because you are the first person who has touched him in so many years." And I think that story really helps us this morning to understand what it's like for people with the leprosy. I was tempted, as you may be, to think that the disability is the worst thing, but actually it's the way that people are still treated in today's world. I just want to finish this part with this verse from Matthew. I think it's really interesting that here Jesus is sending out his disciples, his friends, into the world. And this is what he says in Matthew 10, verse 8. "Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse those who have leprosy, drive out demons." I think it's interesting that he chose to highlight, out of all the diseases and illnesses in the world, leprosy. And I think that's because of the way people were treated when Jesus was here and are still treated today. But let's look at that final part of that verse, which is was for the disciples, but is also for us as followers of Jesus. That he reminds us that we have everything. Freely you have received. We have so much, don't we, that has been given to us that we enjoy. Now freely give, freely go into the world and help others. We're going to read from Revelation chapter 21, verses 1 to 7. And before we have our reading, I just wanted to mention that when I came into your beautiful church, I noticed that 2 of the verses are on your doors. So long after I've gone, in a few weeks' time or a few months, I hope that you, when these beautiful doors and verses catch your eye, that you will remember this service and particularly this passage this morning. Thank you.
So it's Revelation 21, 1-7. A new heaven and a new earth. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away." He who was seated on the throne said, "I am making everything new." Then he said, "Write these down, for these words are trustworthy and true." He said to me, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this, and I will be their God, and they will be my children." Thanks be to God for his word.
Thank you. We're going to turn to that passage now for a few moments. And just to start again by saying thank you so much for your kindness and your compassion towards those affected by leprosy in inviting me to your church this morning. In our passage in Revelation, we have a beautiful vision of the future. This is John's vision that was given to him by God of a new heaven and a new earth, where there is a world in the future where there is no more suffering, pain, and death. And it's a reminder to us this morning that no matter how dark and difficult the present may seem, that God's promise of renewal and restoration is sure. Can I get my... There we go, thank you. My next slide. In verse 3, we are reminded that God's dwelling place is now among the people. And this is a wonderful encouragement, because although this is a vision of the future, this verse uses the present tense where we're reminded that God's dwelling place is now among the people. And this morning, if you have trusted Jesus to be your Lord and your Saviour, this promise is for you. We know that his Spirit dwells within us and that he is with us in all the situations that we face. I don't know if you feel worn down by life challenges this morning. If you do, this promise speaks directly to you. And it reminds us that God is not distant and he isn't indifferent, that he is with us, especially in our suffering. And he promises that all pain and sorrow will one day be gone. And this verse has particularly spoken to me since I've been going out and sharing this message. It's been a real encouragement to know that God is with me. I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and our middle child, our middle son, is 17. And, you know, for the last few months, since February, actually, he has been suffering with terrible mental health issues. And it's been really, really hard. And if you've ever had to support someone or gone through that with a member of your family or a friend, you will know how difficult it is to walk that path with them. And a few weeks ago, I'd gone to bed. It was a Saturday evening. I normally speak on a Sunday. Most Sundays I'm out speaking in churches. So I'd gone to bed, and then after midnight, our eldest son had knocked on our bedroom door and woken us up and told us that our other son wasn't in a good place. He was considering self-harming. He wanted to end his life. And we managed to speak to him, pray with him, and kind of get him back into more of a stable frame of mind. But you can imagine that going to sleep that night was hard. I was tossing and turning, and actually I cried all the way to the church. I was very emotional in the service. I thought, how am I going to stand up and speak with all of this going on in the back of my mind? But God gave me, he gave me the peace, that wonderful peace that is described in the Bible, that we can't explain, that when we go through such difficult times, that he can flood us with that peace. And I cried all the way home. But you know, this verse is such an encouragement, and I pray that it's encouragement to you this morning, no matter what you're facing, that God knows and that he is with you and he's with us on those difficult, most darkest days of our lives. In verse 6, God declares, "To all who are thirsty, I will give freely from the springs of the water of life." And this powerful statement reinforces that God is the source of everything that is good and the fulfillment of our deepest longings. It reminds us this morning that God is not only the one who created us, but he sustains us. And in our moments of suffering, we can turn to him. And then finally in verse 4, he will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever. What a wonderful promise. That promise doesn't say he might wipe every tear. It doesn't say he may or he could. It says he will. He will wipe every tear from our eyes. Despite the things that we face, God's plan is for good to triumph over evil. And that isn't just wishful thinking. It's a divine promise rooted in the death and resurrection of Jesus. Because Jesus rose from the dead, we have an assurance that good will indeed triumph. And when Christ returns, we will see the full impact of his victory. Do you feel like there's a part of your life where you need God and God's goodness to triumph? Be encouraged. Because of Jesus, we can live with confidence that darkness and pain and tears will not have the final word. John's vision isn't about escaping hardship, but about God's commitment to bring healing and restoration to everything that is broken. As recipients of God's transformative love and hope, we are invited to be agents of change in a world longing for healing and restoration. And there are few places where this longing is as urgent as in the leprosy colonies of Odisha state in eastern India. In the Leprosy Mission Great Britain, who I work for, we serve in 4 African countries and 5 Asian countries. But across the entire world, the Global Fellowship supports people wherever there is leprosy. We often focus on India because India has the highest levels of leprosy in the world, with 60% of cases that are diagnosed every year in India. You may wonder why then we are not working in Odisha currently. We have 14 hospitals across India. We have vocational training centres. We have care homes. But just to put this place into context for you, 25 years ago, in 1999, a Christian man and his 6 and 10-year-old sons who had been serving people affected by leprosy in the leprosy colonies of Odisha were murdered for sharing the gospel. And since then, there has been no outside help there. It is no surprise then that the number of people diagnosed with leprosy here is double the average in India, meaning that Odisha has one of the highest leprosy rates in the world. As the statistics say on the slide, only 13% of people living in the colonies are able to read and write. And 96%, almost everyone, have permanent and life-changing disabilities caused by the disease. Stigma and discrimination are experienced by everyone affected by the disease. They're not, for example, allowed to travel on public transport. Just imagine for a few moments that you go to your GP because you're not feeling very well this week, and you're not only told that you have an illness, but you're also told that because of that, you are no longer permitted to get onto a bus or a train. And this is the reality for people in India. They can only marry within leprosy communities, and begging is often the only way to survive, with earnings of less than £1 a day. There's no way to meet basic needs and to break out of this cycle of poverty. We met one young lady who doesn't have leprosy, who is currently employed. Her family has leprosy, her parents, her grandparents, and she told us that she lives in fear every time she goes to work because she's so worried that if her employers find out where her family live, that just by association, her job would be terminated. She would lose her job instantly. On their visit to Odisha last year, my colleagues were shocked to find people living in homes so run down that they look like crumbling caves. They have many problems there. They have asbestos on the roofs, and they have no way to stop cobras and scorpions from coming in at night. One elderly couple, the husband was blind, so it was down to the woman, to his wife, to try and stop these scorpions and snakes coming into their homes. We found no access to toilets or running water. So people go to the toilet in the field, which they told us is particularly dangerous at night because of snakes. The only source of water is the river, and there is no real way to make sure that it is clean, which makes it even more difficult for people with leprosy trying to cleanse and clean wounds caused by the disease. During his visit, my colleague Peter met this lady, and when he put his arm around her to comfort her, she told him it was the first hug she had received since she was a child. When asked what her hopes and dreams are in life, she said, "I dream of having my own sari one day." That would be in complete contrast, wouldn't it, if I'd had asked the young people what their dreams or hopes are for their lives. I'm sure many would talk about a career in the future or something that they're aiming to do or to be. Imagine having so little that your biggest dream in life is to own one piece of clothing. Many people affected by leprosy shared with my colleagues that they have so little hope that they often go to bed at night praying that they will not wake up. It seems like the hopelessness in Odisha is insurmountable. And the situation is so far away from the vision of John's new heaven and a new earth, where every tear will be wiped away. But the amazing thing is that people affected by leprosy won't have to wait until the return of Jesus for their suffering to end. We can't all go there and offer people food, water, and hugs. But when you pray and when you give, you are enabling the love of Jesus to reach people who desperately need it. We're now going to watch a film that tells the story of Anjali. She's featured just behind me here on the banner. She is a lady living in the leprosy colonies of Odisha. She's 35 years old. And through her story, you will see how your kindness, your compassion this morning can revive a place that seems hopeless.
When I was a girl, it seemed as though I had everything. I remember the summer evenings when my brother and I would sit by the river and dream about our futures. I wanted to be a nurse. I didn't know then that my dream would never come true. When I was 11, I first saw the white patches on my skin. I was scared to check myself when I washed in the river. With every week that passed, another patch appeared. The doctor told me I had leprosy. I didn't really know what that meant. No one in my family had ever had this disease before. I should have been given medicine, but I was sent home with nothing. Without the cure, leprosy began to attack my body. Slowly, I lost the feeling in my hands. My fingers were so weak that one morning as I was cooking rice, I dropped the pan. Boiling water poured over my hands, but I felt nothing. We all panicked. My mother took me from one traditional healer to another, but nothing they gave me worked. From this point on, my life took a very dark turn. My grandfather lived with us, and when no one was listening, he would tell me I was a curse. He said he was going to kill me. I was going to die. I was so scared of him. He tried to poison my rice and made me really sick. He took me to the railway tracks and tried to push me in front of a train. I don't know how I escaped, but I managed to run away. Then one day, he told my mother he was taking me to hospital and that he'd bring me back when I was better. We drove for hours and hours. Eventually, we stopped at what looked like a derelict village on some waste ground. He told me to get out. I thought he was coming too, but he didn't. I was terrified. Where was I? What was happening? I fell on the floor, crying for my mother. I didn't know then that I'd never see her again. An elderly lady from one of the shacks picked me off the floor. She and her husband took me in and looked after me in the leprosy colony. My heart was broken, but slowly I rebuilt my life as best I could. My hands were almost useless. I knew there wasn't much of a future for me. At night, I'd lie in bed and think about my brother and of the dreams we once had. When I was 19, I married an older man from another leprosy colony. I have 2 sons of my own now, but I want so much more for them than this life, the life I've had. We have nothing. I have to beg because no one will employ me because of my leprosy. Our home is collapsing. There's water coming through the roof. It's really hard living in a wet, damp room during the monsoon. There's no toilet, and we walk to the river to get water. There's so much sickness. I can't afford doctors. No one can hear. I'm scared our children will get leprosy too. No one cares about us. We are forgotten.
Anjali's tragic story is just one of the many in this region of Odisha. Poverty, poor sanitation, and a lack of healthcare means it's the perfect breeding ground for leprosy. These communities have been forgotten by the world, with no outside help for over 2 decades. We found elderly people surviving on 1 bowl of rice a day, malnourished and weak. Children facing sickness from drinking river water. Homes on the verge of collapse. Infected ulcers and disability caused by leprosy, seen as a curse and despised by all around them. But worst of all was the loss of hope. Like you, we believe Jesus is the hope of the nations. And together, in His name, we can revive these communities, stopping the spread of leprosy now and for future generations. Providing clean water and toilets, building safe homes, providing opportunities to grow food and look after livestock. With your support, people affected by leprosy in this remote region of Odisha will no longer be forgotten. God has called us for a time such as this, a time to revive health, revive futures, and revive hope. It's time to revive people affected by leprosy in Odisha. 24 pounds cures 1 person of leprosy. 72 pounds buys 2 goats for milk and breeding. 160 pounds provides vegetable plants and fruit trees for a community farm. 800 pounds provides a borewell for a source of clean water. 2,500 pounds with a match fund of 1,500 pounds from the Indian government builds a safe family home and toilet. Please visit leprosymission.org.uk/revive to give today.
I would encourage you this morning to seek God as to how He would like you to respond to what you have heard. One way that you can help is by praying. And I want to encourage you this morning to not underestimate the power of your prayers. I think it's wonderful that God has chosen to not only hear us, but to use our prayers to change situations. And there's a lot to pray for India as a whole, but also the leprosy colonies of Odisha. You will know recently, you would have heard about the terrible plane that crashed in India. And many of our staff take internal flights and also go from this country and from other countries to and from India quite regularly. So we would really appreciate your prayers for safe travels. I am very excited to be visiting Odisha in February, so I'd appreciate your prayers, particularly in the context of the history of that area and what happened before. So please pray for the safety of our staff as they work there. And if I am invited back and you want to hear more, then I would be absolutely delighted to share some of the photos and footage and what it's like to actually be there and the progress of this appeal. So if you'd like to pray regularly for the work of the Leprosy Mission, there's a table that I've set up just in the coffee area in the cafe, and there's a leaflet that you can take with a QR code on the back, which will link you up to become a prayer partner. If that means nothing to you and what I've just said's gone right over your heads, that's not a problem. You can pick up the phone and call our Peterborough office, and our lovely staff will also be able to set that up for you. So don't worry about that. Another way that you can support and revive Odisha is by giving. I always carry my handy card machine wherever I go because, like me, I'm sure you don't carry a lot of cash around these days. So if you wanted to make a card donation, you can. You can also give online at leprosymission.org.uk. And here are some of the ways on our screen here on the slide how you could make a huge difference. Just £24 cures 1 person of leprosy. We've decided to focus on very practical needs this time because that is what the people need right now. And so £72 would provide a pair of goats, and 160 would allow us to plant vegetables and fruit plants so that we can continue to provide nutritious food for these people. Just 800 provides clean water for an entire community, and what a life-changing gift that would be. And we are delighted to be able to partner with the Indian government on this project. So for every 2,500 that is raised, they will give 1,500, which makes the total of the 4,000. And that will enable us to build a small home, but with a flushable toilet, which will make a huge difference to improving the conditions for these people. And there is a direct link between the conditions people are living in and this disease thriving. So it will make a huge difference, not just today, but for the generations to come. Could you go that extra mile this morning? You have fantastic facilities here, and we have a couple of ready-to-go events that you could consider holding. One is a big tea party or a coffee morning. The other is a quiz night. These events are also a great opportunity for churches to invite new people in who maybe haven't come to the church before. So please use those as well, and don't let me restrict you. I'm sure people here have so many talents that God has blessed you with. Musical evenings, curry nights, all kinds of things that you could consider to raise awareness and some more money for the leprosy mission. And then finally, could you consider giving a regular gift once a month? I was shocked to order a cup of coffee the other day in Reigate, near where I live, and it cost me £5.30. £5.30 for one cup of coffee. That's a personal challenge to me of how we use the money that God has blessed us with. Because by going without that cup of coffee once a month and redirecting it to the leprosy mission, you could cure 4 people by this time next year. The generosity of people never ceases to amaze me, and some people already have chosen to give as much as £24 every month, which cures a person every month, so 12 people in a year. Let me finish this part of our service by saying thank you so much again for your love, for your compassion for people affected by leprosy in the colonies of Odisha. And we're just going to close this time together with a prayer. Loving God, we come to you who brings life to what was once hopeless and weary. We lift up to you the people living in the leprosy colonies of Odisha, longing for healing, dignity, and a future. May your presence revive their lives and renew their communities. Inspire us to be your hands and feet, reaching out with love, compassion, and generosity. And may we carry forward your promise of a world made new, where tears are wiped away and where hope is revived. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.